ISIS is now claiming the married couple that carried out the deadliest shooting on American soil since the Sandy Hook attack in 2012 are supporters. The terror group made that declaration on their official radio station today. Our Brian Todd has a look at what possibly turned a seemingly ordinary married couple into cold-blooded killers. Brian, what are you learning?
Frederica, right now investigators are looking into whether the female attacker, Tashfeen Malik, influenced her husband to become radical or if it was the other way around. We do have new information on the increasing number of ISIS sympathizers inside the United States and on the important roles women play in their ranks. 27-year-old female attacker was born in Pakistan and later traveled to Saudi Arabia at least twice, according to a Saudi official. She met Syed Rizwan Farouk there, then traveled with him to the United States on a fiancé visa. Farouk family lawyers say she was a typical housewife, but traditional, often wearing a burqa.
She did maintain certain traditions, from what I understand, in terms of fasting and prayer 5 times a day. She chose not to drive voluntarily.
In online dating profiles thought to be his, Farouk expressed his desire for a girl who wears a hijab and said he enjoyed target practice in his backyard. The FBI asked directly if it was Tashfeen Malik who influenced Syed Rizwan Farouk.
I don't know the answer, whether she influenced him or not.
I very much believe that it's possible that she influenced him. When we look at female fighters, female recruits to the Islamic State, we tend to her through the men around her, whether it's a boyfriend or a husband or a cousin, that is a reason for her support for the Islamic State or any other political movement. And with this case, we're being forced to sort of re-examine that.
The couple wouldn't be the first Bonnie and Clyde inspired by terrorists. Hayat Boumediene, the widow of Paris supermarket gunman Amadi Coulibaly, was, according to his former lawyer, the more radical one in the couple. Boumediene is now believed to be with ISIS in Syria, as is Sally Jones. She's the widow of top ISIS operative Junaid Hussein, believed to have inspired the only ISIS-instigated attack so far on American soil. The foiled attempt in May to shoot up a Prophet Muhammad cartoon drawing contest in Garland, Texas. Jones is now believed to be a key recruiter for ISIS. In a sobering new report on ISIS sympathizers inside the U.S., Lorenzo Vadino at George Washington University says many of those supporters are women who are adept at social media.
Jannah, bride. Jannah means paradise in Arabic. So you do see that women are more prolific than men. They tend to write more. They tend to post a lot of things. They tend to have a lot of accounts.
Those accounts, Vadino says, are often used for propaganda and the recruitment of other women. But right now it's not clear who might have radicalized Tashfeen Malik. A source close to the Saudi government tells CNN she was not on any Saudi watch list or under suspicion of extremist activity by Saudi authorities. Frederica?
Thank you so much, Brian Todd. So joining me now to discuss more about how U.S. citizens are becoming radicalized, Dr. Judy Jasser, founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. Good to see you. So we've heard explanations before that some recruits feel disenfranchised, and so that makes them that much more vulnerable to being recruited. But this couple didn't necessarily fit that bill. What's the other route or other routes in which some are radicalized?
Yeah, Frederica, I think it's very important that we correct the language a little bit. When we see radicalized, we sort of think that you take a normal Muslim and all of a sudden they just bond with ISIS. The ISIS stage is the operationalization where they become militant jihadists and want to do something on the field operationally and do the violent attack. The radicalization takes years. ISIS is sort of providing them that entire picture. But the picture is the Islamism, the sense that Islam and the political movement, the anti-Westernism, anti-Semitism, the conspiracy theories, the victimization, the sense of needing redemption, this connection to some of his devotionalism, etc. While certainly the solution will come from inside our faith, and that's why this is a battle within, the slide towards radicalization leads them to what many of us call Islamo-patriotism, or that allegiance to the concept of the Islamic State and the Caliphate. ISIS is tapping into that. That's why it's becoming more successful at recruitment than Al-Qaeda, because it's tapping into that Islamist fervor, if you will.
So you said the radicalization, it takes years. So unbeknownst to many people who have been interviewed and who've said that they seem very normal, they didn't detect any of that radicalization. But we do know that Tashfeen Malik did post on her Facebook the allegiance to ISIS that you were also speaking of. So is it the case where perhaps in this couple, they're so conditioned to fooling, or maybe that was a primary focus, fooling everyone around them until that moment of pledging that allegiance.
Well, we're talking about two different things here. One is the bottom line is Americans that need to look for things and see something, say something. It's about the sense of violence and are they going to act out? Yes, that's going to happen in the last few days to weeks. But us in the Muslim community, we had a summit yesterday of reformers. We put together a 2-page declaration that said these are the ideas that are the dividing line between reformers and those who believe in the Islamic State. So over years, there's this drift towards a sense of allegiance towards the Islamic State. So Muslims that are adherent to that are going to be part of the problem and part of the pathway to radicalization. The belief and apologetic about violent jihad, the apologetics about the inequality of men and women, sort of principles that run against what we're used to in Western society are part of the radicalization process. And until we Muslims, we're the only communities that can address these things because we see them early. We can tell Muslims that are sort of incompatible with Western modernity and secular society versus those that are drifting towards a hate for the West, a demonization, and a sense that they want to become part of some other loyalty, and thus American citizens become dehumanized and ultimately will become targets on their battlefield.
So unbeknownst to a lot of people, there is some record of activity as it relates to ISIS influenced or terror related activity. According to the FBI, there have been ISIS related arrests in 21 states. And in ISIS related arrests and investigations in the U.S. as of November 12th of this year, a vast majority of them involve U.S. citizens. 71 Americans have been charged with ISIS related activities. About 40% are people who have converted to Islam. And there have been 56 arrests so far in 2015. These are astounding numbers, the most terror arrests since September 2001. And 86% of those arrests are males. So what do you do with all of this information? How concerning or even enlightening is it to you?
Well, it's not a surprise because you're dealing with a global ideology that is the militant endpoint of political movements that won elections in Egypt and Tunisia, with the Muslim Brotherhood, the Islamists of the Khomeinists in Iran, the radical Wahhabis in Saudi Arabia. These are large global movements with huge platforms in social media. Only one endpoint. So it's sort of like treating meth addiction. The gateway drugs, be it alcohol, marijuana, etc., to that is the intoxicant of the ideology of political Islam. So if you look at my own Twitter feed and others, I'm getting attacked from many of these types of Islamists and others that hate Westerners. So we Muslims, we need to generate a public-private partnership with social media giants, be it Twitter, Google, Facebook, to begin to work towards getting Muslims to lead this fight. And that's what our Muslim reform movement is all about, because non-Muslims can't do this. And Islam is in that same time in history, Frederica, that Christianity was in the 18th century, where we're battling against theocracy. And as long as the theocrats continue to control the mantle, and we Muslims stay in denial that it's just about terrorism and they're just sort of a psychotic endpoint, we're not going to treat the core gateway drug to the final violence, which is political Islam.
And are you concerned, and until that were to happen, are you concerned that a good part of the Muslim community is going to suffer or feel some backlash out of people's anger, confusion, fears over even those numbers that we just shared?
Absolutely. I mean, that's why we're doing this work. America's been hungry to hear Muslims that want to own this and take responsibility for reform. That hunger can turn into starvation and anger if we don't fill it, not by just denying it and saying, oh, woe is us, we're the victims, but actually turning it into saying, you know what, Americans realize if we take ownership that we become the solution, and that'll melt away the bigotry against Muslims.
All right, Dr. Judy Jasser, thank you so much.